The world we are living in right now can feel scary, uncertain, and completely overwhelming. One common thing that we are hearing from clients, from colleagues, from family and friends, and the community as a whole is that there is a desperate search for truth. And there's a disconnect between the information that is being put out there and what people really believe to be true. So, according to a study that was recently put out by it's the Mental Health Organization or Mental Health America organization, approximately 1 in 5 Americans struggle with mental health issues daily. Now, that's a pretty alarming statistic. In June of 2020, the CDC actually conducted a survey that found that 31% of adults have reported having at least one symptom of anxiety and or depression. Now, you might be asking yourself, okay, well, why does this matter? What does that have to do with me, my future? Maybe you're feeling confident right now. Maybe you don't feel like you're struggling with these things. But here's the deal is that studies have shown that those suffering from depression are 40% more likely to suffer from heart disease. And what is heart disease? It's one of the leading causes of death in the United States. So if we continue to see a lack of resiliency, issues with mental health, those statistics continuing to increase, I mean, even the most positive minded people that I personally know have struggled and have had some challenges, especially over the last few years with all that's gone on. So, if you're not looking at ways to really help support and nourish your mental health, this can be detrimental for your future in more ways than one. So, if you struggle finding resources or anything to help support this and to help build up your resilience and help you focus on having a positive mindset, you can go to mysweetfinancial.com. There is a plethora of completely free resources and what we call our retirement readiness toolbox to help you really shift your mindset. Now, you might be asking, retirement, maybe you're not at that point yet, or maybe you're past that point. It doesn't necessarily matter the stage of life. What matters is the content and material that are there to support any major transition that you're facing or any major challenge that you might find yourself facing. I think back to a conversation that I had recently with a colleague. This particular gentleman, he has built and maintained a really successful business, has had some pretty exponential growth in the last couple years. He is an advisor, so part of his role is really help creating peace of mind and some level of certainty for his clients going into the future. So in this conversation, he's talking about how he has to show up in his meetings being that positive light and being that person that can offer, be it some form of certainty or positive outlook or whatever that looks like. And on the inside, he's really terrified and he's struggling and he's battling kind of his own mental disconnect between, again, what is true and what information is out there. So for him, he feels completely out of congruency when he's having to brave face in front of his clients, in front of his team, in front of his family, when on the inside, I mean, he feels like he's slowly dying because of everything that's going on around him. So this isn't a unique story by any means. You may find yourself facing these same kind of thoughts, looking at where you're maybe showing up for others, but on the inside, you're feeling fearful, uncertain, maybe scared of what the future holds or scared of what's to come. Or maybe it's just the fear of not knowing what's to come because it doesn't seem like anybody really has that answer. Anybody really knows what truly is to come in our future, both near and far. So when you think about your own resiliency, there's really 6 key things that we're going to go over today that you can focus on that can potentially help you increase that internal happiness. Try to find some sense of truth and decide where you want your attention focused on. So again, 6 key things that can potentially help you, increase that positive muscle, that mental resiliency, and the things that we need so much in today's world. So number one, when you look at characteristics of really mentally strong people, the first thing that comes to mind is they often don't wallow. They don't waste time in a state of feeling sorry for themselves. Now, I want to preface this by saying there are bad things that happen, and there are legitimate struggles, and there are things that you may be facing that are awful, that are really heavy and hard to deal with. But what we're talking about here is that mentally strong and mentally resilient people, they don't allow a bad moment to turn into a bad day. They don't allow a bad day to turn into a bad week. They don't allow a bad week to turn into a bad life. So think about that from your own particular perspective, is how are you staying out of the wallow? How are you finding ways to kind of dig yourself out of those difficult strugglesome times to help build your mental resiliency? Number two, again, looking at characteristics of really mentally strong people that you can in turn embody, they embrace change. They may not love change. They may not be excited about it, but they embrace it. And I liken this to somebody who is maybe going into retirement. And retirement can be used or defined by many different ways. The definition that I don't like to use is being, put out to pasture, kind of laid out there to just graze into the sunset. That's not what we're talking about here. But if you're thinking about embracing change and all that's to come, you might think about somebody who has had a really great career, high profile. Maybe you've held a position of power or authority or something like that. And now you're coming off of that. And instead of feeling like your best years are behind you, the networking, the relationships, the people, the impact, instead, people that are mentally resilient are looking at it going, wow, what can I build next? What's next in the future? What can I get excited about? What do I have to be excited about? And finding themselves in a state of gratitude for what's to come versus fearing change. So that's just one of many examples that you can think about and use there. But mentally resilient people, they embrace change and they're not afraid of it. So when you think about the third aspect, and this is a really simple one. It's one that we learned, maybe in elementary school, maybe even before that. Mentally resilient people, they are kind. They give grace. They try to have some level of empathy for where somebody else is at. And that's how they lead and live their lives. So again, kindness goes a long way, and we don't need to belabor this one. But when you're looking at that mental resilience, when you're grumpy or you are, feeling distaste or dislike, or maybe even hatred towards another person, that creates a certain level of unrest and can cause your mind then in turn to spiral into a negative space. So kindness is such a simple recipe for helping us kind of boost our brainwaves and help us get into that positive state of mind again. Point number 4, we're looking at mentally resilient, mentally strong people. They are willing to take some level of calculated risk. Now, this can mean a whole variety of things, but people who truly feel like there's great years to come, the best is yet to come, there's even more ahead of them, they're willing to take some level of risk to get what they want and to get to a point that they want for their loved ones, for their lives, for their families. So this might mean starting a business. There's no level of certainty that comes with that. It might mean, checking something off the bucket list that you've been fearful to try, to do, to experience. It might be traveling to new places, understanding new cultures, pushing yourself outside of your box so that you can really, again, expand expand on your overall awareness, which in turn can help you increase your positivity, your mental outlook, how you are resilient or the level of resilience that you would experience and anticipate. So really being able to take some sort of risk for your future, that could even be, maybe it's moving to an entirely different part of the country or moving to a totally different country and experiencing what life is like there. Again, mentally resilient, mentally strong people, they're not afraid of a little bit of risk. They're not afraid of a little bit of uncertainty. They actually embrace it just like they embrace change. So that's something for yourself. You can ask yourself the question, how much risk have you taken lately? What challenges have you overcome? And how have you really stretched yourself? These are things, again, that mentally resilient people tend to do and tend to embrace. Point number 5, mentally strong, mentally resilient people, they tend to focus on what they can control. Now, this is a big one. This is actually huge. And if you don't listen to anything else, this is one to pay attention to. If you think about the negativity that's in the world, if you think about the lack of truth, the uncertainty, all that's going on, there's a lot of heavy stuff out there. To go along with that, there's also a lot of it that we don't have, that you don't have direct control over. So an awareness of what's happening in the world is a good thing to have. And a mindset of being prepared is a good thing to have. But wallowing in, going back to the first one, and being stuck and focused and consumed by all the things that we cannot control, that you cannot control, is a recipe for mental disaster, where all of a sudden your attention, your time, your energy, your focus is all on things that you can't have direct impact over. So what in turn happens then is your brain is in that constant state of negativity and worry and fear, versus looking at the things in your life that you do have direct control over. So you do have direct control over, how you show up for your loved ones, how you show up for the people around you, the contribution you are putting out into the world, your own positive state. Are you showing up in with negative energy and a bad attitude and you're grumpy and all of those things? Or are you choosing to show up as a positive, happy, and encouraging person that is actually inspiring the people around you? So, they say there's only a couple things in this world that you have true direct control over, a couple of which being your attitude and your energy. So for me, I want to bring the energy into a space that I would hope to receive, not falling victim to the energy that somebody else brings to a space. So again, you want to look at what can you control versus being consumed by all the things that are completely outside of our control right now, which, as you know, is a lot. So that brings us to the 6th point when you look at mentally resilient people, 6th characteristic, we'll call it, of people who are mentally resistant and something you can put in place in your life right now. And that is having the ability to celebrate others' success. This one is huge. This one is monumental when you look at, how you show up in life, because jealousy, envy, anything that kind of coincides or goes along with that can put you into a really negative mental state. Now, all of a sudden, instead of celebrating other people's wins and being excited for them and all that they have done, created, accomplished, achieved, insert whatever word there, all of a sudden now you're maybe getting into a game of comparison, judgment, maybe a little bit of, uncertainty or imposter syndrome, where you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not them. I can't accomplish what they've done, or I can't do what they've done, or, oh, maybe they're better than me in some capacity. And again, all of a sudden, where do we see this going? It's that mental unraveling. It's that negative mindset. It's that poor state of being. So being able to celebrate other people's wins and being genuinely, truly excited and happy for them, that's a whole new ball game all of a sudden. So again, recap there. When you look at the characteristics of mentally strong, mentally resilient people, it's not wallowing. It's not staying stuck in the suck, I call it. It's being able to navigate and get out of a tough moment, a tough day, and knowing that it doesn't represent a tough life, and embracing a possibility for your future. Point two was embracing change. Again, you don't have to be excited about it, but you got to embrace it. Number three is being kind, finding grace, finding that happiness factor. Number four was being willing to take some level of calculated risk. Number five is focusing on what you can control. And number six is celebrating people's success. So rolling all of that up, those are 6 things you can do to maintain a positive mindset, to feed your mind with good things so that you don't find yourself getting so far down into the negativity and the uncertainty and the potential lack of truth that people are feeling or experiencing in the world today. So if you need some help or guidance on any of these topics, reminders, tools, resources, go to mysweetfinancial.com, where you can get access to completely free tools for mindset, for planning for your future, for focusing on the things that you can control. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel. And if you want more inspiration, not only will you get the alerts by subscribing, but you have a whole plethora of resources and information. So if you want to continue on with the conversation of things you can control, maintaining a positive mindset, putting yourself in a good, positive, nurturing environment, go ahead and tune into the video that we did called Creating an Environment You Can't Wait to Wake Up To. There's parts 1 and 2. So you want to listen to those right now, back to back, as it goes even further into building mental resiliency and creating that life that you are truly excited about, that's full of controllables, that's full of great people, that's full of positive energy, so that you can be that for others, just like you hope that others can show up for you.